Welcome to True and Unpolished. Through this podcast, our intention is to uplift, amuse, and inspire you to create more of a life you'll love. Let's get authentic, everybody. Well, hello there, everybody. This is Lydia and Mary, and you are listening to True and Unpolished. And today, or this week, Mary and I had similar things going on. And so we knew that because of the synchronicity of those things, that it was indeed the thing to talk about. So I'll start with mine, which is telling you that my youngest son got sick. And there's actually been like a series of sicknesses in our house, but my youngest son got sick, and it's been the first time in really a while. And he is my son that has the chromosomal anomaly and is autistic, so can have some challenges in communication. But essentially, it looked like a cold. You know, he was having a cold. I was trying to work from home. And then by 5 o'clock, I hear his dad yell up the stairway. He's coming up and he has poop in his pants. And I said, oh gosh. So we know like con 4, is that a thing? Con 1, danger.
Death con
1. That's right. Like it goes to like, get the rubber gloves, get the Clorox. Like we know what that means. In fact, my husband and I reminisced afterwards, like how common that used to be, because the boys were 16 and a half months apart, and it was just constant, cleaning up of things like that. So, he has to come upstairs, and he's wearing shorts, which means like all along the stairs, there's things to be cleaned, and there are things to be cleaned. And to take off of his clothes, he sits on his bed. And I'm going, don't touch anything, don't sit on anything. I'm like,
oh gosh,
take things off. And I'm literally in the middle of looking through like something was wrong with our taxes. And I was like in this deep dive research mode. So I've totally switched, and now it's like, okay, how do we do this? And so I get him in the bathtub, the whole thing. And of course, my 10-year-old, who is such a helper and who you heard from last week, the leader, the self-proclaimed leader, now that he is firmly a wolf in the wolf pack. He's helping, he's running up and down the stairs, bringing trash bags, bringing, cleaner, whatever we need. And so I get my young son in the bathtub, and I get him, washed and cleaned. And then he says, I got to go again. And
oh no.
I get him back out, right? And so what I'm trying to do is give him Imodium, but we don't have kids Imodium. We have adult Imodium, but it's easy because it's little pills and they tell you what to do. You give one, pill to a kid, and then after a second one, you give them half, and that's it. Well, he also has a terrible gag reflex, and he always has. Like literally, just brushing his teeth can cause him to gag, and that's all the case for him. And so we're trying this process of him, swallowing a pill, which he's never done. And
this is not getting better.
No, it is not getting better. And so I'm like, okay, just put it in your mouth and then take the water real fast. And so he's doing it. And I said, is it gone? And he's like, he's still like literally at the tip of his tongue. And so, and then it falls out. So it falls in the toilet. So try again. And I said, okay, this time I'm just going to like, put your head back, and I'm just going to like throw it in. And then you put the water, then you do the water. And he got it. And so, now I have to get him back in the bathtub to clean him up because, we've done this again. So now, but then I had to let that water out because obviously you want the water to be clean. But now he's back in the bathtub and he says, I think I got to go again. And so now this is really the time where you do the half of the pill, right?
Right.
So we begin to commence trying to do the second. And so we try the same trick where I throw it and, he leans his head back, I put it in, and then he does the water. And what happens immediately is he throws up everywhere, like all over my shoes, all over the
Oh
floor.
gosh.
So, and so anyway, I just, in case.
I mean, that's like the worst.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
both for, I mean, at this point, we've all been feeling for you, but obviously for him now
Yeah.
too, because
Yes.
like that's the worst thing that you can have.
Yeah. Right.
Physically, I think.
Yes, yes. And so I get him. So now we have to get back in the bathtub because he's now covered in vomit. And everything else is on the floor, including my shoes. So I take out my shoes. And so I get him back in, and he's going, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And
Oh gosh.
I said to him, I sat down and I said, and I'm telling you, I meant this from the bottom of my heart. Like it came from my heart straight through my mouth. And I said, honey, out of all of the people in the world, I get to be your mom. I get to be your mama. I get to be the one that helps you when you're sick. And he said, and that's good. And I said, honey, I feel so lucky. And I meant every word of it. And so now I think, Mary, you also have a similar kind of story, although yours might not involve as many bodily fluids as mine did.
Well, I won't go into detail about that, but but there were some.
Got it.
And so, well, first of all, I want to give you a tip.
Okay.
That my daughter, who just had surgery, and she's 14, but she is really good at taking pills, and she has been for a long time. But her trick, and I really don't know where she learned this, but you actually put the water in your mouth first.
Oh.
And then the pill.
Oh my gosh. Like I might owe you $1 million. Like this might be like $1 million advice that you just gave me, because that is what. So just in case you're wondering how I actually ended up getting him the other half of the pill, was I stuck it in a banana, like a tip of a banana, and I just buried it in there. And I came and I said, eat this banana, because I had told him
it'll make you feel better.
Yeah, I said the only thing you can have is banana, applesauce or toast.
Right.
Now the whole rice diet thing. And so he eats the banana, and I said, you just took the half a pill. And he said, oh, you tricked me. And I said, anyway, but okay, go ahead. So thank you, 14-year-old daughter, for that trick, because maybe welcome. It's her that I probably owe the money to. So
she says you're welcome.
Okay. So she had surgery this week.
Yeah, she had a herniated disc in her spine.
Yes.
And so she had surgery to fix that.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of coming out of it. It was a week ago today. And I mean, she's still recovering, but she went back to school yesterday, and every day is a little bit better, where she's able to do a little bit more for herself. But oh my gosh, it is so heartbreaking to see your child in that kind of pain.
Yes.
I mean, and I think it's true to see anybody in that kind of pain, where you really can't move or do anything without excruciating pain, and you're very limited in your ability to get up, to get dressed, to go to the bathroom.
Right.
And I mean, I've had surgery multiple times, so I know that pain, but to witness it with my daughter, who's very active and always active and busy.
Yes.
So this has been really, really hard to watch.
Yeah, yeah. And you were a caregiver. And see, and I think that and what it reminded me of, is, I think Dan Gorman, like, actually, like, popularized the term emotional intelligence. And you, Mary, have taught me so much about emotional intelligence because that is, your gift. Like, that is the gift that you give to your clients. And I just happen to be one of your peeps, so I get it for
Right.
free. And so he talks about this recognition that there are three kinds of empathy, and there are three types. And there's the cognitive empathy, which is where you understand how someone thinks. So someone that has a high level of cognitive empathy is a very good communicator. They are able to speak to people
Mm-hmm.
and just sense and intuit, what would make sense to them, the way to say it that would make sense to the person that's
Sort of
listening.
like they're able to kind of read the room,
Yeah,
and
and
they're able to.
know really and truly how you think. Like the way he said it was, you understand really quickly how a
Mm-hmm.
person will receive a message. Like one of the things that I am able to do, I would say that I have a very high level of cognitive empathy, which is
Yeah.
one of the reasons why, I speak for a living. And what happens is I can sense and intuit the words or the way to put something, so that people will understand it. And I can interchange words. Like I'll even, be talking to one person and notice that I use a word that I would never ordinarily use, but it just comes out of my mouth. And it's because I have this level of cognitive empathy where I know, what they need to hear. I need the word that's going to speak to him. And
I
side
think
note,
that is,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's a skill that I've had to learn. And I don't know what he says about it, but I know with emotional intelligence, I mean, it's a lot of this stuff is learned.
Oh,
And
sure.
maybe we weren't taught this when we were growing up, but we can learn it at any point in our life. And, we're always learning anyway. But
Yeah,
yeah.
and I would say that the second type is the type that I had to learn. I think cognitive empathy came to me pretty naturally,
Mm-hmm.
and of course has gotten better over time. But the second type he talks about is emotional empathy, where you know how someone feels, like you know how someone feels. And I would say, Mary, in my experience of you, that you have a very high level of
I
emotional
can feel
empathy.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can actually feel how they feel, rather than just, have a thought about how they feel.
Which
Uh,
isn't necessarily a good skill.
well,
I
no,
mean, it
I
is a
totally
good skill.
disagree.
Well, it is a good skill when you're relating to people, but if you take on other people's emotions,
Right.
then it's not, it can be very unhealthy. I mean, there's a lack of boundaries in that sometimes, when we absorb other people's emotions.
You
So,
know, I just had like a big aha, I think, for you. Side
mm,
note that we'll talk
thanks.
about
And aha
later.
for me.
Yeah, I think I got an aha for you. But it's off topic, so we'll talk offline. But and maybe bring it to you guys in a later episode. But so then he says this third kind of empathy, okay, and that is empathic concern. That's where you actually care how the person, thinks and feels. And
Mm-hmm.
and he mentioned that, you know, uh sociopaths have a lot of the first two, the cognitive empathy, the ability to feel how they feel, and know how they think. But it is that third level, which is that you actually care, and that it is a natural human, it's built into us that we have this empathic concern for our children,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, uh, and the key is to then, and I would say that this has really helped me. My children have made me a kinder, more loving person to humanity through the experience of my empathic concern for them. Like I have this realization, and
Very
that's kind of the skill. It's the thing that we want to aspire to, is is being able to reach beyond our, our friends, our peeps, our family, and extend that level of empathic concern to everyone. Like that's what the Dalai Lama does. And it is something that you can practice through meditation, through lots of different techniques. But one of the ones that I used really early on, after having my kids, was I then became aware that every person was somebody's kid. And because I knew the level of empathic concern I have for my children, I knew that someone had that for this person that's standing in front of me. And, I think that we can use those moments with our kids where we get to be the caregiver. And I truly mean that. Like I really do feel lucky that in all the world, I get to be my two boys' mom, out of all the people.
I think it's even because in my case, I'm divorced. And so, my daughter's dad was generous, or generous enough to let me take care of her this whole week. And so instead of her going to his house as she was scheduled, she was able to stay with me, and we were able to work that out together. And
that's beautiful.
And I really felt that way, that it was such a gift to be able to be the one to take care of her.
Isn't that beautiful? And, yeah, me too.
While it's exhausting because it's been, she's needed me for everything.
Sure.
For the past week, it has also come with a lot of gifts. I mean, she's such a gracious, appreciative child.
Yes, me too.
And yeah, just willing to acknowledge, how I'm helping. And so
because she has empathic concern. Because she has empathic concern.
Right.
She both knows how you think, knows how you feel, and cares.
Right. So I think, I was kind of, as you were talking, I was thinking about Abraham, and this is something, I don't know where we're going to go with this comment, but Abraham is a group of non-physical beings that are channeled by this woman named Esther Hicks that I really like to listen to if I feel any emotional distress. That is generally what I go to listen to Abraham. Brings me a lot of comfort in those moments. And so one of the things I wonder sometimes is if we are overly concerned with others, then instead of our own, like dealing with our own stuff, our own internal stuff, then that would be an example of a boundary violation for myself, where I'm overly concerned with somebody else. And, one of the things that I think is maybe controversial about what Abraham talks about is that 100% of the time I should do what is in alignment with what feels good and right to me.
Right.
And if we all live that way, then, what kind of world would we be living in?
Well, and I think that has to do with levels of consciousness too. But I think that, I can say that what I know to be true is that, and I've talked with many people about this very thing. It's like, you can't be sad enough to make sad people happy. So like you're being, and no matter what, no matter our level of empathy or intuitiveness, we are always projecting how we would feel if we were them. And the reality is we're not them. and their life is on purpose and their journey is on purpose. So whatever they're going through, even if it seems to be a negative, painful thing, we can have empathic concern, which is that we care deeply that they're in pain, while also not going there with them, recognizing that it actually isn't truly helpful, as you were talking about before, in not having a boundary and saying, this is where I stop and you start.
Right.
And you know, and I have a friend who he really, you know, he is also a 4, and he just gets so incredibly sad about, you know, the state of, you know, and I'm going to say this wrong, but like farmers in Rwanda who don't have like the water for their crops or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Like he will read something about this and he will be so, you know, overtaken with what he, in his own words, called grief for them. And over a series of weeks and months, I finally was able to really get through to him that he, in the very best he could do, is project how he would feel if he were in that situation. And since he's not in that situation, he actually isn't even doing that. He's just projecting this sadness, this that can't be contained within him, and it's because it's not meant to be his sadness. The plight of you know, the farmer in Rwanda that doesn't have enough water to water their crops is not helped by his sorrow or his grief. And people are able to be truly helpful and actually give aid that is helpful when they are not mired in grief. So in that respect, I completely agree with Abraham in that, you know, if we work on our own joy, if we work on staying in our own lane and keeping that boundary, then we have the energy, the happiness, the resources that we need to then go out and be of service. Because when we are grateful, when we are happy, the natural, at least what happens to me and in my experience of other people, when we're in that place, the question becomes, how can I give? You know, how can I serve? Like, I'm so full. How can I serve?
Well, my daughter was talking last night about having a yard sale. We love yard sales. We like putting up stuff on the side of the road. The other day, I was walking down the street and there was this beautiful concrete planter, and they were just throwing it away. And so, I mean, this is something that she gets from me, but I picked the planter up and brought it home.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant. But we were talking about having it. Well, she was talking about she wanted to have a yard sale because she wants to get rid of her bed and whatever. And somebody said to her, well, why wouldn't you just give it away to, you know, somebody who is needy? And so I was kind of contemplating that, and I feel like it kind of goes along with this conversation, you know, and I think there's a judgmental way of looking at this sort of thing, you know, like I am righteous, I'm good because I give of my time or money. And that, but there's a lot of judgment that comes with that. So if you don't give enough, then are you a good person, or, you know, that sort of thing. So, but
I think if you're staying in your own lane, then you don't have time to contemplate whether or not somebody's given enough. Like, parting thought that I have through all of this is the recognition that, you know, we can learn to extend empathic concern to all of our fellow human beings, to the planet, to all living things. And we can practice this, and we can practice it in many different ways, many of which we've talked about here on the podcast. And that, I think, is what is truly helpful, rather than practicing empathy, where we actually absorb and are feeling how someone else is feeling. we can decide, I can see that you are in pain, and I care that you are in pain. And now I can be truly helpful to you because I'm not taking on your pain. I can be here
Right.
as a loving presence.
Right. And if I'm in a place where I've taken that on, then I need to step away and work on getting my own self
That's
back
right.
into alignment with what feels good and right for me, because
That's
I
right.
can't be of service to anybody if I'm out of alignment with that.
That's right. Totally agree. So in closing, boundaries, everybody. We are so grateful for you, and we are so grateful for all of the people who listen to us week after week. We are very excited to tell you that we are going to have a guest with us next week. Actually, several weeks of guests are coming up. Mary's peeps, so we can all
I've got
look
my
forward
peeps
to
lined
that.
up again.
What'd you say?
I've got my peeps lined up again.
All your peeps are in a
Oh,
row.
and we forgot to mention, speaking of peeps, because I've got a couple of chickens. They're not peeps anymore. They're actually full grown chickens, and they're part of my farm that it still doesn't have a name.
That's
So
right.
we're hoping that we can get some suggestions for a name for my farm.
That's right. So it's an actual true farm. Like everybody just it's a cuckoo bird farm going on over there. All her peeps and chickens are lined up in rows. Her silver bells and cockle shells. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that, but so we're gonna be doing a call to action where we ask you guys to please help us come up with a name for Mary's farm, and I will just put in a request that I would like for it to be funny. So you have been listening to True and Unpolished, the podcast. Let's see what happens next.